Welcome to the show.
All right. So you might have to brief me a little bit because I'm not sure what to expect or say.
It's not live essentially. Whatever you don't like that you said, I can always remove it. We're just gonna talk about your career, your learning, like how you got to where you are, how you like the stuff you've learned, some of the games you made, like Dishonored 2, and then just like a casual conversation about your game dev journey.
Okay. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Is the audio good enough?
Uh, yeah, sounds pretty good.
All right.
Cool. Basically, what we'll do is we'll get started. So, welcome to the GameDev.tv podcast. You can introduce yourself a little bit, let people know who you are, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thank you for inviting. My name is Raphaël Colantonio. Uh, I was founder and creative director of Arkane Studios for many, many years. And I left about 3 years ago, and now I'm president and a creative director of a company called Wolfeye. And I still do the same kind of games, which are, I guess, immersive sims somehow. So, my games I've done are Arx Fatalis, Dishonored, Prey, Dark Messiah, and now Weird West.
Yeah, so that's a big portfolio. Gotta did a lot.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. So how'd you get started with game development? Was this something when you were younger?
Yeah, I see this with my son right now. He's 18 and he's is doesn't have much experience, obviously, as anyone who's that age, like I was back then. And you have dreams, and whether it is to be in a band or work for video games or be an actor or whatever it is, that sounds like it would be amazing, but you have no idea how to do it.
Exactly.
So it was the same, I had no idea how to get there, but I got lucky and and then once I had my foot in the door, then I was very persistent, very yeah, very almost pathetically insistent to manage it, and it's
Yeah.
really hard because you only know how much you want it and how much you think you can add to an industry, and how much passion you have to go through all the rejections and all the all the cynicism that people might have about that, because of course, why you more than someone else?
No, 100%. Because honestly, at the end of the day, nobody really, I mean, I guess they could care, but nobody understands how you feel about what you want to do with your life. So you have to go out there and make it happen. And then people will care about what you care about because you've shown them that you care about.
That's right.
Yeah. So when did you know you wanted to be like in the game industry? Was this something that just came to you? Was it from playing games? Was it after high school?
Yeah, I think, and bear in mind, in the 80s, 90s, there was absolutely no roadmap for that.
Mm-hmm.
At least nowadays there are. You can do some schools, and the industry is an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas back then it was just a bunch of isolated geeks that were making these games, and there was no real clear path to how to do them. So for me, I started to play games when I was 8, I believe, which again, I was born in 71, so it means I was playing games in 79, which was rare back then. It made me one of the few nerds out there, that young nerds, that was playing games, and it was not very well understood by others. But I got hit so much by the profound feeling of immersion in a different world that games would provide to me, that it stayed with me my entire youth. And when kids wonder what they're going to do as they age, which is always very hard because we only can relate to work we understand. That's why most kids, they want to do policeman or fireman
Yeah,
or
or doctor, lawyer.
collect the trash or something
Oh yeah.
basic, and so to me, I wanted to make video games, or I wanted to play in a band, because those were two other things that I knew, and anything else was not exciting to me. I was doing school for maths and science and stuff like that, but there was nothing sexy about this for
Yeah, yeah,
me,
no.
and even though making games or being in a band felt virtually impossible, that's still what I wanted to do, and anything else would make me sad just thinking about it.
Hmm.
That was me, and I got lucky. Frankly, I even though that was I was preparing myself to do something else. Then I didn't really want to work with in an office or on some abstract work in as marketing or whatever. I really wanted to do something that I could grasp. And my third passion, if not for video games or music, was restaurants. So I thought I was going to
Really?
make yeah, I thought I was going to open a pizzeria.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
Because it felt like, okay, we're going to be independent, my friend and I.
Hmm.
We don't want to be in the normal world. We are going to make our pizza place, and so that felt interesting. That felt fun enough. And as I was doing research in there, I was also doing the military service, which back then was mandatory in my country, in France. And I got super lucky. I got just sometime you have to embrace luck when it comes to you. And in my case, I filed a contest to win a trip to playtest the sequel to a game that I was a huge fan of back in the days, called Ultima.
How'd you get
And
that?
well, it was in a magazine. It was in a
Okay.
magazine like the equivalent of PC Gamer.
Okay.
It was another magazine. That magazine was called Joystick. And I filed this competition to win this test, to go to America, to go to Texas to play test Ultima 8. And I got contacted by the publisher who organized that test. It was EA, and it was a fake test. It was not they were actually not looking for someone to test the game. They were looking for someone to join their French office that they were just opening. And so they were looking
Wow.
for a gamer, basically. They were looking for someone who knew games and that could talk and be pretty excited and passionate. And they did not want to use a normal ad because they thought they would be flooded. So instead, they did that very smart contest,
Yeah.
to be able to pick and choose who they would have. And so they called me one evening, and they told me that. They told me, hey, are you interested in interviewing? I was, wow, I have no idea how interested I am. So that was the luck, getting inside. But what was not luck was that once I was inside, I I shook earth and in French we say sky and earth to make career in the development, not in the testing or not in the QA. But what I really really wanted, I wanted to meet the creator of the Ultima games. I wanted to be part of that world. And so while I was at EA, which was a big organization full of administration and full of departments, and I was just a little guy in the QA department, I did all I could to show how passionate I was about development. So I just being embarrassingly annoying to everybody, the managers and the producers in England, because I was in France back then. I asked to be transferred in England so that I could assist someone doing, having a chance to prove myself, like doing some producing stuff or doing anything, voice recording, uh, game design assistant, whatever they would allow me to do. And so they did. That's where EA, being part of a big organization like this, if you really uh, constantly lobby and ask people around you, eventually they will be okay. Well, this guy is such a pain in the ass. Give him a chance, And so they gave me a chance, and little by little, that's how it happens. Until at some point, if you want to grow from there, you don't have many choices. Either you do your own company, or you wait forever until you have a chance to climb in the ranks and eventually do the game you really wanted in a big company like EA. But that is very, very unlikely because EA knows the games they want. They're not going to ask you to make the game you want.
Mm.
That's when 4 years after I joined EA, uh, I realized that my only way forward from there, closer to actually what I truly wanted to do, which was making games like Arx and Dishonored and all those games.
Hmm.
The only way was to bite the bullet and make that house for myself. There's a moment you can't count on other teams to give you that chance, because who would want to give a young designer a chance to direct a complex game? Why they would do that? They have a huge company that is full of those already, and so like they're gonna keep that jobs for the ones who are already in place, right?
Makes sense.
So that's why the only way to get there was to be, well, okay, I'm gonna start Arkane Studios, this company that is gonna be making the games I want to make, and I'm gonna find some other crazy people like me who believe in impossible things, and we're just gonna do it, knowing that there's a chance it doesn't work, obviously.
Hmm.
But now it's our own risk. We're not asking anyone to take risk.
Hmm. All on you. That's crazy though. So you had no game design or development experience when you went to EA?
Yeah, no, I mean, at EA, I studied as QA and
Yeah.
QA representative, so I had, of course, not game, no game developer experience at all.
So when you say they gave you a chance, was that for like the sound, game design, or which part of them did they give you a chance for?
Yeah, so when they moved me to England, it was to be as an assistant producer. So that was very formative because I got to touch a little bit of everything. There would be voice recording. I actually even recorded my own voices. Like I would record the French version of a game, for example, going in the studio, understanding how that works, working with localization, translation, but also things like motion capture. We just placing those. Back then, we had like those little balls that you place on the bottom
Yeah.
at very specific places. Now they have more elaborate techniques, but back then it was a little heavy-handed. And so yeah, I would be that guy. I'd be that guy that learned how to place those little balls on the bodies, and then record this thing and smoothing the lines, because those motion capture, they return to you some sort of set of curves, animated. It's not even animated. It's captured. Each ball
Like,
gives you a little curve in space,
oh,
basically
okay.
3D, right? And all of these combined will create an animation. So they will all like so there was so I would smooth those curves, I would clean them, I would process them before the animators actually would be able to use the animation. So things like that. And also little by little they gave me game designer roles. Like I was part of a few games. One was called Dark and Light, another one was called Beast and Bumpkins. None of those were actually big hits, but I had a chance to be a mission designers for one of them, or things like that. So little by little, you know I wouldn't say you know enough, because you never know enough about game
Hmm.
dev. It's a very hard process that doesn't have a true uh, formula, but you know more and you're more familiar with at least this world and the different type of actors that exist in how to make a game, and what it takes, and what is the budget. And being an assistant producer is a good way to get started, I think, in the world of game dev, because you see a little bit of everything, and you hang out with a lot of those people that actually make the games.
You think that's easy to get that type of role nowadays, or that was just more like back in the day?
Uh no, I think it's still possible. I think um the two, I think QA testing, those are very easy to get in. Uh Junior designer is actually pretty easy as well, if you have something to show, like say you're using Unreal, which is free. Everyone can use Unreal, and you can make a mod of a game that you like, or you can make like yourself, like your own little world, and using assets that you just buy for a few dollars, you can actually really make like a game, and that is advanced enough that you can show that, send that to people of the industry. The industry nowadays is so well organized, and I'm talking specifically about those big companies that are looking to hire all the time because it's growing and growing.
Hmm.
So there are moments like they have a process to integrate younger talents. So it's actually a little more easy than it was back
Oh,
in the
okay.
days. And so if you want to be a designer, then I guess, yeah, you show an Unreal demo or something. That's probably what I'd do. If you want to be a programmer, you have schools, you have, so it's as well. You can say, well, I've done this school, I've done this. I've got this little all these little examples. What's hard actually being a producer is not an easy one, because there are a few schools to learn how the job of producer specific to games, but even then it's hard for people to evaluate how good of a producer you might be.
Yeah.
And because producer really is an organizer, problem solver, and there's no way to demonstrate that in an interview. As much as it's possible to demonstrate, like you created that super cool 3D model of a character, uh, or this piece of code or whatever, there's not much to prove how good of a producer you are. So usually they are recruited internally because they come from QA, people that have been working in QA for a long time, and they understand games so much from the bottom, from their worst aspect, which is the testing, that they, for all the bugs and all the things, that they actually have a fairly good understanding of the full, um, even if it's on the surface a little bit, but they have a full understanding of the games, and what it takes to go from a very very buggy game to a very good game. So there's value for that. There's value to that for an assistant producer.
Okay. That's pretty good though, because you've given more insight to the ways that you can get into the industry. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially some of the GameDev.tv students, feel like it's kind of hard. It's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to show people. I don't know what to do. But it's like you said, just show some code, show the game that you've made, make something so that they can see, oh, you can do the job, and then they'll probably give you a chance.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah, I would. Yeah, there's a lot of. It's way more organized this day than it ever was. So I
Mhm.
think and there's also way more people that want it, right? So it compensates. It makes it not necessarily very easy, but it's more organized. So
Mhm.
it's easier to know who to talk to, and what type of things to focus on in order to get there.
Exactly. And while you were at EA, did you like study while not working, like at home? Did you do anything like extra?
Um, No, I mean I was training myself on C back then, C++, and I was not good at it. I've never been a good programmer per se. I always thought it was very obsessing. It makes your head in a specific mindset, which is so obsessive for me. I would obsess over programming, and. But that's pretty much the only thing I really spent time on from home, was to make little personal projects, like my first Pathfinder or whatever, to try to even understand how that works. Uh, yeah.
And so then while at EA, you decided that your like main thing was game design or like being a team leader?
Yeah, probably. I think I always saw myself back then a little bit like a jack of all trades. I was a good gamer. I was a good. I was. Uh, I'm a very sensitive person. I listen to people, so I can pretty good judge of people generally. Um, and I thought, yeah, organizing or designing was kind of like what I wanted the most. I think at the time, as I was done with EA, by done I mean, like, when I was ready to go to the next step for me, I it's not like I liked organization, but I had it. I had learned enough of it that it was going to serve me
Mhm.
for my passion. And my passion was really to create games, like the vision of it, the game design side of it. Um, and yeah, and it's scary because it's a game is a big thing. Like there's so many layers to it that compose the experience at the end. Most of all, the kind of games that I like to work on, I don't think in a linear way. I don't think of, first there's mission one and you do this, and then mission two, and it's sort of like very prescribed. I think of things
Mhm.
that are more like, here are all the pieces, and when you throw them together, it's somehow creates something. And that is very overwhelming, of course, as a way of thinking. um yeah.
Nice. Okay. And then when did you decide you wanted to leave EA and go do your own thing like Arkane Studios?
So it was a little bit out of frustration. I think, the way the mind works is, you make plans for the
Mhm.
next thing, etc., etc. And which is probably the opposite of what the Buddha would tell you if you're like into being in a Zen life and with happiness, you know. But if you're not, which was my case anyway, you are like always like looking after the next thing and planning 10 moves
Oh
ahead
yeah, I know.
and
Yeah, definitely.
being all stressed and hanging on to things, you know.
Yep.
So I was like that, and my plan back in the days was to pitch to EA my fantastic game, which was going to be this kind of like underground game where you have like a sword and all this, and it's an RPG, and it's like a mix of simulation and adventure and all that. And again, as I was saying earlier, those big organizations, that will never go through for very, very. Now that I'm much older and much more seasoned developer, I understand why. Because there's no avenue for that kind of approach. Like there was no way by going within the EA organization as an assistant producer, I was ever going to make my game.
Makes sense.
Unless maybe I wait for another 20 years and I end up like somehow in a big role of a game, and then like I have my chance to make my own game. But that was like a plan that I was not ready to gamble on. And so what I did though is that I asked for a job at Origin in Texas, where I live now, to the guy who was doing Ultima, because I was a huge fan of Ultima. So that guy is called Richard Garriott, and he gave me the job. Like I had a contract that was coming in. So for me, it was all right. I'm in. That's it. I'm going to work. If not on my own game, at least I'm going to work on Ultima, on the next Ultima, which is close enough to my own game in my mind. And most of all, I was 24 or something, 25 maybe, and then as a little before I was supposed to sign the contract. So I received the contract, even that's how far we went. And I signed it on my end, but before they signed it on their end, EA closed Origin. Wow. They shut them down, like they they do that a lot apparently.
Yeah, they do.
And so now to me it's just like a vague memory. But back then I was crushed.
I know.
I was crushed. It was you're 24 years old. You have all these dreams, and every little step matters, and it all like you hang on to things like your life depends on it. At least that's how I was. Maybe that's still I am. And when that opportunity closed down, like I was so crushed. And so I because suddenly I saw myself. Well, that's it. I'm gonna stay in England. I'm not working on the games that I want in this rainy country. So I basically left out of frustration at this point, because I knew that was not gonna. I did not have the passion for keeping going somewhere like that. Most of all, after having been dangled that other reality that seemed so appealing of working on the kind of game that I wanted under the sun. So I left and I created Arkane shortly after that.
How long? Like, was it a couple months?
Oh, it took maybe a year.
A year. So during that year, what were you doing? Other jobs, or you were just like
Yeah, I
planning
was
it out?
contracting for a company that was working for Infogrames Atari back then in France, and working on a game that was not very meaningful to me at all. But I got a chance to have more experience, meet new people, including some of the people that would end up with me at Arkane, creating it. And I was pushed by my uncle, who's dead now, but back then he was a business guy. He didn't understand much about games, but he saw that I had like some experience and a strong passion to make that happen. So even though if he understood how hard it is to make a game, he would probably not have pushed me or probably not have told me to do it. But we gathered something like $150,000 back in the days. Some coming from my own money, some coming from my associates' money, and some of it from my family. So, and with that, we decided to try this crazy adventure of locking ourselves in a room, four of us, for about a year, making a demo for a game that I had thought of for years, but I wasn't sure exactly how to make.
Mm. What game was that?
Arx Fatalis.
Oh, okay. And so then after like a year in that room, you released it, and what was the reception on that?
The reception was not as good as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago, 20 years later, this game is like some sort of a cult that people refer to, which is interesting to me. And again, back in the days, if I had known that, I would have been blown away. Back then, the game shipped toe to toe with not Oblivion, Morrowind.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a hard
And
one.
Oh yeah.
yeah, and Morrowind was a big heavy hitter, and so there was a niche. There were the press liked it. Market didn't really like it because there was no marketing. Our publisher shut down the month that we shipped, actually. So basically, it was the game. The game ended up somewhere in limbo, like in a no man's land where nobody was there to support it. So it was like almost a secret stealth release.
That must have been hard though.
Yeah, and we did not have any money to push it, and we didn't even know this world at all, like how to push a game, or there was no internet back then. I mean, there was internet, but it was just more like to have very static internet, like more like a page or something. It was nothing that compares to the nowadays internet. So yeah, it made its impression. We got nominated as a rookie studio of the year, the GDC that year. We got a lot of press. We got a lot of publishers that knew about us. We were known to be those little guys that do apparently a good hardcore game that doesn't sell.
That's
But
the
that's
thing.
what developers like.
Yeah. But so like, was it tough though? Like, because it wasn't as big as you wanted it to be. Did you feel like, oh no, we're not going to make it, or was it just an obstacle in the way?
Yeah, it was tough because I think again the human mind has respond much harder to bad news than to good news, I think, right? Like so the fact is we had made 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. But all we could focus on was the step backward.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah,
I hate that we have to do that.
It sucks. Yeah, it sucks that life is that, but it is for a lot of us.
Did you like overcome that? Because you mentioned like Buddha and stuff like that. Did you use anything to get out of it? No.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe some psychotropes can help. I don't know. Sorry,
it was such a personal project to you as well. That almost makes it sting more than if it was a large game that you'd worked on as part of a larger team.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was an extremely personal project with a lot of personal reference in there, and yeah, it felt like my failure before anything, right? And it's funny because in the grand scope of things, in retrospect, I look at it and no, that was actually a real success. It was not a real success. It was a successful step towards success, I would say. But in the moment, when all you have is reality and the present moment, it doesn't look like this. It just looks like, we just had a car crash. we were on our way to the party. So how do I know at this point that actually this car crash is a good news? Because then this other person is going to meet me thanks to that, That's pretty much the reality is that shipping a game like that, even though it did not go to, I got some weird message, the meeting.
Oh yeah. So usually they have a 40-minute thing, but I guess today they said not today. Perfect, right?
So yeah, when things like that happen, even though it was not like it did not yield all the results that I was hoping for, it still took us somewhere. Now we were known in the game industry.
Mhm.
Even though we're not known to be like a hit maker, we were known for our passion and our very specific type of game. And that is what has somehow, one brick at a time, led to Dishonored. Because after that, publishers would come to us for that specifically, for that kind of games that they could
Mm.
recognize we can do, right? And as we do more of them, then we became better at them, etc. Until Bethesda, who Todd Vaughn, the guy who approached us for the first time, he was such a fan of all of our games before that, uh, there was no doubt for him. Once they were in a position to look for studios to make that very specific kind of game, Todd thought immediately Arcane.
Hmm. So the idea of Dishonored, was that from you or from Bethesda?
So Bethesda approached us wanting a game that would be in the style of Thief.
Okay.
Uh, and they had a name for it. They had a name called Dishonored. And in the mind of the person who approached us, Todd Vaughn, it was an ideal theme would be medieval Japan
Oh wow.
with ninjas because of Dishonored. And Harvey and I, of course, like when they approached us to ask us to do a game like Thief, which made by Looking Glass, we were both, Harvey and I are huge fans of Looking Glass, and they are also the ones who inspired me for Arx Fatalis. Uh, we were thrilled. We're thrilled. We're not so thrilled about the ninja part, because we did not know much about that world or understand it very well. So we quickly we took the deal, we took the opportunity, but quickly we went back to Todd and said, like, we're not sure about the ninja part. So he was cool enough that he just said, like, well, do whatever you want then, as long as you call it Dishonored.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Worked out well in the end, though.
It did, yeah. Bethesda was a very trusting company as far as creative. They approached us and then eventually bought us because they trusted us to make good games. They were not there to manage us like most big publishers do.
Hmm. When you were sitting in the room with Todd, did you feel like you made it? Like Arkane Studios was successful?
Yeah, I think there was this, you do and you don't at the same time, because I think Arcane was always the underdog. We were always this small company that almost makes it but never does.
Mm.
And so even after Dishonored, we would still not believe it took things such as going to HEB and being recognized by uh, by a clerk or people in the street sometime, like a gamer or someone, to understand that this time we actually truly had made it.
Mm.
And even then, I think our reflexes were we learned over 10 to 15 years of struggling, made it that we would still be very humble about it. We never really thought like, oh yeah, we made it, because you frankly never really make it. And I think it's probably true for a lot of different industries. You're always in balance somehow. You're always trying to juggle different pieces and trying to grow at the same time of staying alive and making this new thing and making this deal, etc. And you're never in a stable position where you just feel, oh, I can just rest now. But yeah, I do remember that moment with that was a beautiful moment actually with Todd Howard, in fact, at Bethesda. So Todd Howard is the guy behind Skyrim and Oblivion, the new Fallout and all that. And back then, I had never met him. Actually, no, I saw him at a conference presenting Oblivion, I think. And I was like, scams to do, whatever. But
Of course.
but I never talked to him, right? And so the funny thing is that when we met, he said, "Wow, when you guys, you know what happened?" He said a few years ago we were doing Oblivion, and Todd Vaughn, the other Todd, had seen Dark Messiah. He had seen a demo at the GDC, and he came back to me and my leads, and he said, "Guys, we are fucked." because they saw the combat system, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
it inspired them to improve their combat system, etc. And of course they were far from fucked, because the same way we ended up toe to toe with Morrowind when we shipped Arx Fatalis, we ended up toe to toe with Oblivion when we shipped Dark Messiah, and they of course crushed us.
Mhm.
But they still like the game and the company, and this is why eventually they came to us and went to work with us and buy us. Which, it's just interesting how, again, it goes back to the example of the car accident, where in the moment all those near successes feel like failures, but eventually they pay off. It's just that it's hard to appreciate them in the moment.
Yeah, it's like that Steve Jobs quote where it's like, if you look at your life, you won't really like see everything, but if you look backwards, you'll see like the dots connect and everything actually was leading to the success you have now.
That's right.
Yeah. And then I want to hear the whole story about Dishonored. So like, did you guys come up with the idea of Dishonored initially and then it became what it is now, or did like it completely change, or how did they go with making Dishonored?
So we knew we were going to go for a mission-based game that was going to be sandboxy, mission by mission, and with a lot of variability and in the outcomes based on the choices that you had made. And also we knew that it would be very thief-like, uh, in a sense of its stealth plus assassination.
Mm-hmm.
And so that never changed. The things that have changed is that we've added magic, we've changed the location a few times, and the world. The world evolved a lot. It started more historical, and it ended up with this thing that people said was steampunk, that we didn't even realize was steampunk as we were making it. But the vision was pretty clear as far as the moment to moment we wanted, and then once you have more of it, then you can refine it and you can add and deepen some stuff and take opportunities to make great choices as you go, which has always been our approach, as opposed to make a plan and then just follow it, because that rarely, it's very hard to plan for something fun and at the end it's actually as fun as you thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't leave that space for reevaluation, and that too is a moment where usually people see that as a failure. It's like, wow, we thought it was going to be fun, but it's not fun. Where did we fail?
Yeah,
And
go wrong.
I think it's part of the process, and it's hard to accept. It's hard to accept that it's your first draft is not gonna be fun. It's just gonna be it's just gonna be there to tell you something about your game, and then you're gonna have to make decisions, and that's when actually the value of your developers is how well they bounce and respond and make decisions to make changes in the in the content to take it to a better place.
And then where did you get the inspiration for the art and the characters in the world?
Sorry, what about the art?
Where did you get the inspiration?
Oh, that was I would say that was a collaboration between Sébastien Mitton, who's the French art director, Victor Antonov, who was known for Half-Life 2 at Valve, and Harvey Smith and myself. Mostly, like that was this group where we defined the world, the story, etc. And the style itself, I think some of it is very Victor, because of there's a lot of architecture that are very similar to what he usually likes to do. He likes big cities with interesting industrial layers to them. And the type of textures, I think, is very much Sébastien. He wanted something a little more painterly, and so yeah, it was a nice. And then some of the elements of the world, it's somewhere between Harvey and I. I think he came up with the whales, like as a source of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with a lot of the powers. And then some of the things, frankly, if you ask him or I, we were still not sure who thought of them, because sometimes it's like he will think of something, then I will change it, and then he'll change it back to something else, and at the end it's kind of a blur but it's more or less like the world was defined by this group.
And so you said you came up with the powers. How'd you do that? Because those powers are unique and I love them.
Yeah, power. So I didn't come with all of them, but I came with a few. Blink, for example, and I think Harvey and I are both kind of, we were in the same school here. We like things that we like powers, and we like tools in general that do more than one dimensional thing. I think, it would be easy to think of, well, you could have a fireball, and you can the ice ball, and the electric bolt, and all these things, and you can do that. Maybe sometimes that's where we start, but immediately we think, hold on, if it's an electric bolt, wouldn't it be cool that at the same time it does other things, like maybe it attracts metal, and or maybe it conducts through metal, or if it does, or maybe it powers things up, and then you let that live, like those all those you go basically you go beyond its primary function. And
Mhm.
we also like context changers, as opposed to just something does damage, but more like something that change the weight of things, or change the time, speed, and that is going to create way more interesting um, things,
Like, yeah.
events in your game, than something that is very one-dimensional, like that spawns damage.
Mhm. No, I've seen a lot of cool things on YouTube where like people could. I think this is more in Dishonored too, but you can like control a rat and then send it into like a room with the other guys, and then have like a tripe or a bomb on it, and it'll blow up, and you'll be like, I would have never thought of that. It's just so unique, but because you've built these systems, these tools, that people can just be creative with it. It's amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
And most of the time we don't even know that these things are going to be possible. It's and the closer we are to releasing the game, the more we discover them, and the more they are easy to plug between it together, because once you've done the system that is always consistent, where you can actually plug a mine onto an object, whether it's a physic, or whether it's a wall, or on any surface, as opposed to only where it's planned for, then you try it on a rat and it happens to be working,
yeah, right.
and because you can also possess it, now you have this other thing. Now you can move the mine wherever you want. I mean, there's
Hmm.
tons of, yeah, it's a weird way to work that a lot of producers hate, and a lot of programmers hate as well, because it creates a lot of bugs and weird situations that were unplanned for, and yeah, it does create a lot of sweating. But from a game designer standpoint, this is amazing, because this is how your game becomes alive and
Hmm.
surprises even the designers.
Yeah, you're pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Hmm. Now for the song "Drunken Whaler," whose idea was that? Because that is I love that so much.
I can't remember either. We wanted a song for sure. Either it was Harvey that I know Harvey rewrote the lyrics based on that old Irish song.
Hmm.
Either it was Harvey who did it, who wanted it, or someone from marketing. I'm not sure. The lyrics though were written by Harvey for sure, and I think people from marketing chose those guys in New York. I can't remember the name. It's some sort of a, yeah, they're a group, a band that actually specialized in doing covers. Actually
Hmm.
modern covers of old songs. They're pretty good at that. Um, yeah, but I don't remember the details of who
Yeah,
who did who.
because whoever decided on the voice was perfect. It
Yeah.
sold it. It made it what it is today.
Yeah, it was those guys. It was the band. The girl that was singing that was not our choice. We basically let them drive this entire effort.
Hmm. When you heard it for the first time, what was your reaction? You were like, "This is it. This is perfect."
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, we knew
Hmm.
it would fit very well with.
Nice. And so, when did you move on to Wolfeye Studios? When was that?
So a little bit after I left Arcane, I took a big break because I had been on it for 18 years, and I was a little burnt. So I took a break. I frankly wasn't even sure I would still want to work for games back then.
Hmm.
Um, I was going through one of those moments of doubts, and so I focused on other things like my family, music. I started a band, and then eventually I started to feel the itch again for it. So a friend of mine, Julien, who was with me at the very, very beginning of Arkane, he wanted to start this company, and so I started to consult with him just on the idea, and eventually I just joined, and we just did it.
Nice. Another band part. How was that? Did you guys do any like shows or anything, or is it just for fun?
Yeah, no, it was great because we also wrote some of the songs. There's one song from the extension of Prey that is from the band. In fact, the credits for Dishonored 2 was mine as well. I mean, back then I was not in a band, but it was my song that was produced by a local friend of mine. I was very, very good at doing electronic songs. And yeah, it's still going. It's a very cool adventure. Weird Wolves, it's called, and it's a duo mostly, and we're having a lot of fun. It's almost starting from scratch in an industry that I don't know at all, but I'm very serious about it, and I hope we'll get somewhere.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Thank you.
And then for just like the sound and stuff in games, what's the process like for doing, let's say, a song or adding a song to the game for people who don't know?
Yeah, so I mean, the best would be Matt Pearso to talk about that. He was our audio director even back in the days when I was doing Prey at Arkane, and now he's our audio director on Weird West. So I think there's a set of sounds that are really not fun to do: footsteps, gunshots, and stuff like that. It's mostly using banks. But then there's an entire creative part, like powers, magical stuff, or UI, and frankly, he's amazing at that. He starts with thin air, and he does those sounds just by stretching them around, modifying them. I've seen his process; it's really amazing, and I have zero skill to do that. So, but I'm interested in the music part. So, like even in this new game, I'm also part of some of the music, at least not all of them, because we have a lot of drones and a lot of ambiental type of music. But for some of the melodies, sometimes when we have one, I like to be involved in that and my band as well. And usually we either, so for example, I did one actually with Eva, my band partner, pretty recently, and it was driven, in this case it was driven by the mood. We have a situation, without revealing too much about, we have a situation that is kind of creepy in the game at some point. It's very, very creepy, and I need this kind of, in fact, a little bit like the Drunken Whaler, because it's kind of like a song for kids almost, and so it's got this lullaby aspect to it. So it's super creepy, but it's the Western Wild West version with those guitars like with the reverb and all that, and then the voice on top of that is really like this kind of thing. And I think so in this case it was very fun because there was already some sort of the mood was dictated by what the kind of experience we wanted the player to have when they arrive to that location. And then in some other cases, frankly, I already have a song, and it works pretty well for a context, So yeah, and again, it's like, to me, doing music is still fun. It's not quite a job, so I don't really have a process so much. As much as if you were to ask to some seasoned audio guys or audio women that work in this industry.
Do you feel the same?
Why did you decide to explore the Wild West as a location, or like to not exactly explore it in a traditional way, but to sort of look at it in a different way, in a sort of slightly surreal way? What was the sort of thinking behind that for Weird West?
Maybe there was not too much thinking, frankly. It was a bit of an old passion that I've had for a while, like the West. It's because it's pretty gritty. It's simple. There's a lot of symbols that go with the West. It's a little bit like medieval fantasy in a way. It's people understand knights and horses and taverns and kings, etc. And I think it's the same. The West, people understand revenge, the land, those very very grounded themes that speak to people directly, as opposed to more complex world like the modern world or the science fictions or whatever. And so it felt to me, and there was strong imagery as well, so it felt to me like a good, underutilized as well, uh, starting point. But at the same time, we also like uh, things that are a little fantasy or different or weird or maybe a little bit disturbing at times, and that's why we wanted to take this existing setting but twist it in a way that could be more creative and more fun for us, as opposed to being just really like the Wild West as everybody knows it.
Interesting.
Now, did you guys, when you working on Wild West, was that the first game for Wolfeye, or is that?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
first game.
And then how's the process like making that? Did you just kind of the same as the other games you made?
Yeah, pretty much. This one may be a little more chaotic because we started with a very, very procedural approach. We wanted to explore procedural content, procedural story making, procedural missions, etc. And it's definitely a challenge. It's interesting. It took us somewhere that we did not expect. And where we are at some point, we changed a bit. The games evolve all the time, so we are now like more into a hybrid model where we do a part of authoring and part procedural, which I think is a tendency. I think the game industry is going to go more and more towards that, trying to master this procedural element, this weird demon that is in a bottle that is hard to really fully understand. Because if you go fully procedural, you pretty much get a bunch of nonsense. If you don't use procedural at all, you have something pretty static. So I think there's a happy medium there that we're trying to hit.
Oh, that's awesome. Like Joe, you should ask him about the Twitter thing, how he deals with the negative comments.
Yeah. So I was just looking on your Twitter earlier, just finding out a bit more about the game, and I noticed you posted a message that you got from somebody who was really, well, let's put it mildly, a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
About a glitch that they experienced in the game.
That's right.
Do you tend to get things like that a lot? Do people, I mean, obviously people are passionate about the games they play, which is amazing, but then it can turn to anger.
Yeah. Frankly, it's not very common for me anyway. I think there are probably much bigger, much popular games where they receive death threats all the time. And that was one of, I haven't received many in my life, frankly, but this one was like so aggressive in the writing. It's hard to even read without cringe, without believe. How can someone be so full of hatred over something that is it's at the end of the day, it's a product, it's a game, and even though we made it with a lot of passion, so it's like, wow, that gamer is so out of touch with reality. It's kind of scary, and it felt a little scary to be like directly named this way, and it was pretty bad, but it's not very common.
On the flip side of that, what do you find that the community tends to like give you feedback, and what's the sort of most useful piece of feedback you tend to receive?
Well, unfortunately, feedback after the game releases doesn't help us much on this game unless we're doing like of course a game as a service model, which we haven't yet, but I think it's great for the team to read. Most of the time, those are the feedback are always positive. I mean, there's always someone, of course, they're going to say, oh, I was disappointed by that part, but they usually say it with a lot of respect. And then they will tell you how much they were touched by some aspect of your game. And so that feels good. And I think it's great to send it to the team. That's the purpose that they serve. I think those feedback the most of the time, because they are encouraging in a sense, like, okay, well, some people understand what we're trying to do there, and sometimes we have some incredibly meaningful messages. The opposite of that hateful one. You know, we've had messages where some people would say, you guys saved my life, and you know, I was battling a complex complicated disease, and I survived by playing your game. I thought I would hang on to life. You know, you read things like that and you go, wow, that's profound. You know.
Yeah. Is that what keeps you going every day? Those type of comments?
Well, not necessarily, but you know, sometimes you wonder, yeah, why you're doing what you're doing. And we're definitely not saving lives, but we are somehow part of the pop culture when we do something, a product that becomes its own thing, and people start to write memes and use your material and develop over it. And you know that maybe it's influencing some other younger game developer right now. That is definitely a satisfaction to have some sort of an impact, right? But I think that's more like as an afterthought. I don't think that's why we do it. I think we do it just as an expression of something that is meaningful to us. You know, that we want people to experience. Making a game, it's like making music in a sense that you're inviting people to your world, into your world. You know, and yeah.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. And for anybody who wants to start their own studio, what advice would you give for them?
I think, depending on when they are in life, making your own anything, not just your own studio, your own company in general, means that it has to be the most important thing at that time for you, because it's gonna take a lot of it's gonna take a lot of sacrifice, a lot of mind cycles, a lot of frustration, a lot of strength to go through all the hoops. And if you don't do that as a mission in life, like there's nothing more important than that, then chances are you might give up on the way, because it's gonna be so hard that this is really the most important part. The rest, of course, you need to have a product. You need to have an idea that you think the world needs to see, because that's going to motivate you for the first thing I was talking about. And also, why make something that the world doesn't need? Or you need to believe that the world needs to see that idea, that game that you have in mind. It's going to also help recruiting people that want to see that same thing happen, as opposed to, oh, yeah, we're just going to do some game. You know, at first we're going to start small. We're just going to do a thing that looks like this game, and then little by little we're going to make cool games. If you start like this, you'll never recruit anyone that is really good.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
And that was one of the reasons Arkane, I think, landed where we did, is because we never compromised in our passion and our ambitions about what we wanted ultimately. You know, otherwise, someone who likes our kind of games, they would work for a company that already does this kind of game. Why would they work for? Why would they work for the guys that do the not so cool game with the hope that someday they will be a cool game? You know. So yeah, those are my. Of course, the hard thing is, where do you find the money? I think these days you can make pretty big game for less money than we used to. So the beauty today is that you have free engines, close to free, you know, like Unreal or Unity, where frankly, if you're young and you live with your parents, or not with your parents, but you almost have, you know, not much needs, because you're still at a phase of your life where you can afford a lot of, you know, you can afford to live pretty simply. With all the remote tools that we have, like Zoom and as I said, the free engines, the free tools of sort, and you can even buy some a lot of assets for a few dollars only. I think a team of 8-10 young developers can really do miracles these days, and then we are lucky enough that now we can distribute things directly ourselves on some distribution platforms or directly into the App Store, etc. So I have hopes. The only problem, of course, nowadays is that there are so many people who wants to make it that there's a lot of noise, and the problem becomes, how do you cut through the noise? How do you do something where you get noticed? And that's why now more than ever, you can't just get away with doing a Me Too game. You have to do something that is going to be instantly catchy and probably through the visuals at first, because
No,
that's
I
the only
agree.
thing people see on a screen. They can't understand gameplay on the screen, but they will see, oh, that this game that looks all weird and or beautiful or this.
Yeah, it looks kind of interesting. I kind of want to check it out. Something like that. Now, Zoe, is there anything else you want to ask before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I had a question actually. When you took the break that you mentioned between, leaving like this big studio work and then starting your own, did you find that, I don't know how long the break was, but did you find that when you came back, things had moved so quickly that there was actually quite a lot of things that you needed to learn afresh, or was it only a small amount of time and you felt it was sort of a similar landscape to the one you left?
Yeah, the landscape was pretty similar, and the only shocking part for me was that I had not done business for about 10 years. So because I was part of this organization, Bethesda, that was really taking good care of me. And so my only experience with doing business was horrible, because it was pre-acquisition, pre-Dishonored, and we were just the underdogs that were constantly beat by all the big guys, and publishers would snub us all the time. So then when I came back, I was still with that mentality, and I was shocked to see that everybody knew who I was and Arkane, and they were all welcoming, and they were all, so praising, and so that was an interesting change. That was the thing maybe that I can remember the best, was that different kind of treatment post Arkane. But the industry was, even though there's more distribution platforms and more of everything, it's still kind of like set up the same way than it was a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Great, thank you.
Is that all you got, Zoe?
Yeah, it is, and there's a lot of banging going on outside my door, so I'm just gonna stay on mute.
You're good. We're gonna wrap it up. So usually at the end we'll do a little challenge for the GameDev.tv students. It's more of like to get them to take action after this podcast. So if you can come up with a short challenge for them, it could be
A
anything.
challenge?
Yeah.
So like what, for example?
You could tell them to go to your game Dishonored, to take a game mechanic and then change it up, make it their own. So like take the teleport and make it something more unique or something like that, or
wow.
like a drawing challenge. Maybe draw like 10 different concepts of a character. It could be anything. For you, probably be more
Oh yeah, no,
game design type. Yeah.
Yeah, probably something around around the Weird West. I would say what would be an interesting monster with interesting behaviors.
Ooh, I
Think
like
of the, from the behavior standpoint, the AI standpoint, like the kind of ability or behaviors that they would have. It could be that one burrows under the ground for a while and then, spawns in your back every 5 seconds or whatever, something like that. But in Prey we had the poltergeist, which was become invisible for a while and throw physics at you, physics that were already in the scene,
really
based
cool,
on
yeah.
where you were. So that was an interesting behavior. So yeah, how about that?
That's a great one.
All right, well, let me know.
And then I'll let you know the responses and all that good stuff. Now, thank you for coming on. This was awesome. We learned a lot, and I'm excited about all the Dishonored stuff that I learned. And
Thank you.
we want to just end this by handing the mic to you if you want to do any shout outs, any last inspirational quotes, anything you want. And thanks for coming on. And the mic's all yours.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, thank you for inviting. I'm glad I got this hour for you guys. It was lovely talking to you, and good luck to all the young developers. I know I know how long that road seem, and I've been there. And it's, you know, if you really, really want it, and if you make all the effort for it to happen, it can happen. You know, usually it does. It's all a matter of like really, really being persistent. And so good luck with that. And yeah, check out Weird West when it comes out. Check out Weird Wolves whenever you have a minute. It's a band, and it's my band, and that's it. Thank you.